This episode of Where Did the Road Go is brought to you in part by our Patreons. In particular, this month is being sponsored by Lindsay Marie Trebet and Nick Martin. I thank you both so very much. And if you want to become a patron, you can do so at www.wheredidtheroadgo.com. And now our show.
Transmission start. Welcome to Where Did the Road Go? Join us as we wander off the path and explore lost history, consciousness, the paranormal, unexplained mysteries, alternative thought, and much more. We are present on the web at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Now here is your host, Seriah.
So I am back this week with Steve Stockton and Sysco Murdoch. How are you two doing?
Excellent.
Doing great, Seriah. Thanks for having us back for part two.
Yes,
Thanks
part
so
two.
much.
Talking about this book, which is entitled what? It's a nice long title.
It is We Are All Children in the Wilderness of the Afterlife, a guided tour through a haunted life.
All right. Would you say this is the majority of experiences you had, or just the ones that are like the major ones to you?
I would say probably neither. I would say that there's been a lot of experiences. However, for this book, I tried to group a couple together that were similar or contrasted each other just to either prove a point, in the chapter where I was trying to go for the reader, something along those lines. And I also explained in the foreword that I took out anything that I had to really reach for, like I had a foggy memory or I thought it could have been, something like, sleep paralysis or just something that could be explained away. I tried to bring the experiences where, like when my mom visited, if I can just use that as an example, after she passed, I was staying with my aunt and uncle, and I had my own room and I had a cat. Now, I brought that experience up because it kind of goes on a line of how she's come through and been one of my best teachers in life and death. And I sat and thought, and you taught me to do this, Seriah, so I have to kind of give it to you because you've been a great teacher too, of step back from it and take the emotion out. Let's try to just analyze what could be going on here. Did I miss her so much? Was it grief that I thought I saw her? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of just like almost like a tulpa kind of thing where and I brought that experience in because I'm there with the cat and the cat saw her too.
Right.
And the cat reacted. And she was something. And I'll tell you, I had other things that came through that house that I saw her react to. And she usually did that whole back arching, hair puffing kind of thing when she'd hiss. But when my mom was there, she'd look at her and she'd purr. And I just thought that was so, when you look toward animals, they can often tell us a lot about what's going on. And if you can be calm enough to pay attention to everything going on, pay attention to the animals. They can see things, I believe they can see things we can't, probably in a different way. And they're also sensing. I think my cat sensed a loving presence, or at least a positive one, rather than something to react, scared to.
Well,
So
tell people the story, because that was one of the things I did want you to talk about, is the story about when you saw your mother, because you had two different experiences seeing her after she died.
Yes, after she died. Well, that was one. I was in my room, and I was asleep, and like I said, when you write the book, you have to go back and really dig these stories up. So it was extremely emotional. And it also made me think about, really, really think about every word you put down in the book. How did it feel? And while I was writing the book, I realized that I wasn't startled by something that changed in the room. I think I was actually woken up by the pain I felt. And then I realized too, later on, I was an empath. I was probably picking up her pain because she was in what I call her death state. She was still in the gown she wore in the hospital. She still had the wristband on her wrist. So I'm laying in bed and my hand on the pillow and laying on my side. And I woke up startled, and I kind of felt it's like pain. Everything ached and just, pain in my stomach, my chest. And when I woke up, I saw a hand laying on top of my hand. And I kind of just with my eyes followed it up. And there's my mom sitting on the side of my bed with her head down like she's almost asleep too. And right then, that's when I got startled and I just like, Mom! And I said it real loud and fast, and she just kind of woke up, and as she looked at me, and no sooner did she turn her head and, kind of her eyes got wide like I had surprised her, she was gone. And I don't mean twinkled out, faded away slowly. I mean, poof, gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't even sure, was I having a dream?
Right.
You know what I mean? What was that? And it took a little while for the pain and everything to go, but I didn't really put those two things together until later on in life. I started experiencing like walking into a sick room and all of a sudden I feel ill and I'm feeling like that malaise, whatever you call it, where you just start feeling, ugh. And I started realizing empath we absorb. So that happened probably, be honest, 7, 8, 9 times, different parts of the room. And another time she showed up was a little different, and I was laying on my back, and my cat was laying on my chest. And she's just purring and everything else, and I remember just reaching up to pet her, and she's looking, toward the corner of my room, and I just kind of followed what she was looking, and there's my mom standing there, and she's standing like she's resting. She's standing with her hands in front of her and her head down again. And every time I woke up or she was in my room, she was always doing that. She always had her head down like she was resting, And she would appear around different parts of my room, only my room in that house. And I started to get to the point where, okay, I'm scaring her. So I tried that. I was 12. So I'm thinking, maybe I'm scaring her. Or maybe she thinks she's scaring me and I don't want to scare her away. So I was getting to the point where I was trying all different things, come back, I won't scare you this time. It was really I don't know, it was multi-leveled, it was bittersweet, I mean, it was kind of hard, you'd start to just, get it out and get on with your life a little bit and then bam. All of a sudden, again, she never said anything. She never, tried to speak. A couple of times, I think when I scared her, she almost did that, but no sound. So I also attributed that to the fact that I usually can't hear those that have not crossed. I can hear sometimes those that have crossed, but never those that haven't crossed over. And again, paying attention to the cat. She was always purring. She was never startled or upset. So,
right.
I'm shaking now telling you about it. I mean, it was a powerful thing, and I blame myself because I remember a conversation that we had one time. We talked about ghosts some. She was not a disbeliever. She was very much into the whole wonderment of things, and I often think that she had some ability herself. But she would always talk about stuff through the Native American way. We even talked about Sasquatch and Bigfoot and things like that. And she'd say, oh, they're spiritual creatures, and we'd talk about stuff like that. And I said, oh, I don't know if I ever want to see another one again. It scares me so much, And I thought, oh, God, I said that, and that's why she won't talk to me. She's afraid she'll scare, your kids, you go through everything. You're trying to deal. It's a lot to go through. It's trauma, And I didn't see her for a long time after that. That went on for about a year, maybe a year and a half span after she died. And then I figured, okay, I did some talking, I did some studying, I did some reading, and I had finally gotten a hold of Hans Holzer, and that helped me a lot. And I started understanding a little bit more. And I said, she's hanging around for me. She's worried about me. So I got to let her know I'm okay and she can go. So I did a lot of those things. Like, look, Mom, you got to go. You got to go across. I'll be fine. I did a lot of that, talking to the air stuff, even to the point of writing things down in a letter and burning it. Go, let go, you cross. And I don't know when she did cross, but she must had, because the night before I went in the Army, I had got rid of all my stuff and got down to a duffel bag. and I was staying at my sister's house before I went into to North to go into Fort Dix for basic. And I was excited about it, man. I wasn't one of these people that were dreading it, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? I was digging it. I was like, yeah, I was all for it. I was highly trained, and I was just, I was ready to go. I was excited. And so I wasn't depressed and, worried and all that kind of stuff. And I was sleeping on a pull-out couch in my sister's living room. Now, this is a gasser, because she's very nautical, colonial, historical museum kind of house. She's in the historical society, and it's all everything is in its place. She's got this back door that happened to be in the living room, and it's got glass window, but it had like a fisherman's net on it with all these like Chinese glass floating balls and shells and stuff in it. So when you opened it, it made a distinctive sound. So we always knew when somebody was going in or out that back door, and that's always the one that everybody used. So I'm almost asleep, and I hear the door open, and it's way past my younger niece's curfew, and I'm thinking, man, she's going to catch it. It's late. She's sneaking in the back door. So I sit up to, like, razz her about it, and there's nobody there. I mean, I was almost in half speech, like, man, you better sneak in the back because she just went to bed. You're caught, And then I realized nobody's standing there. I distinctly heard that door open. And I'm sitting up looking straight at this door. And all of a sudden I see this little sparkling. I don't know how else to explain it. It's like leftover fireworks, how they sparkle through the air when they come down.
Yeah.
But kind of like a little grouping of them. And it's just getting a little bigger. It wasn't a light emanating from it, it's just sparkles. And it's right in front of this door. And all of a sudden, they all start to come together and make a shape. And it's my mom. And she's gorgeous. And her hair is done, and she's dressed like she would go to the office, it's like she, not going out on the night, out on the town, but dressed up nice,
Right.
Always put together. Hair was done, and it smelled like her. I got a gust of her smell, like a mixture of her hairspray and the perfume she wore. It was her. And she looks great, and she had a little makeup on, and she's got this big smile on her face, and she's standing up straight. No more slouch, no more pain. I got zero pain from her, emanating from her. And it was just, wow. And there she was in all her glory, and she's just smiling. And the twinkle in her eye, and my God, Seriah, she looked happy, And I was like, Mom, and this time it wasn't startled. It was like just glee, And she's still smiling, and telepathically in the front of my head, I hear my mother's voice talking to me. She never moved her mouth. And I heard her plain as day, and she started telling me what she came to tell me. She's like, you're doing okay. You're doing great. You're on the right path. I'm so proud of you. And these kind of things, she's telling me, I love you. You're not going to see me again for a while, but I'll be around. I'll be watching you, And I'm listening to all this, and I'm like, wait, you can't, she starts to twinkle a little bit. Like, I'm like, oh gosh, she's going to fade on me again. Like, you got to tell me, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right thing? Am I, And she goes with her finger in the air, like, like this. And she says, I can't tell you that. It's your path. It's your path. You have to decide. And then she just smiles, and she said, I loved you. I love you. And all the twinkles, back down to twinkles. And by God, if I didn't hear that door open and shut, and I never saw it move. Now, what's that?
That I can't answer.
But isn't that awesome?
Yes.
So you see what I mean by my best teacher? Because I learned from her and others that it seemed to me before they crossed, they still had all their earthly pains and burdens and carried those things with them. And then it seemed like after a short amount of time, that was only about 6 years, maybe 7. Here she is. No more pain, standing upright, beautiful, looking good, got the perfume on, you know what I mean? Hair done. It was awesome. It was awesome.
I would think that that might be part of what holds someone here is that pain. It's the not letting go of things.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Yeah. And I really felt that I'd heard somewhere, I wish I could remember exactly where. I know maybe it was several places and maybe it was in a book and I don't remember, but I remember gathering the whole thought that in our grief, we can hold them back. And by saying that, I don't mean don't grieve. I certainly don't mean don't grieve. But I did come to the realization that that pain and that sorrow, and if they're worried, even for pets, because most of the time when pets come back, they're worried about us. They're cool. They're good to go. They got this,
Right.
But they're worried about us, so they come back because they think we need them, and I've seen that multiple times. And that's when I started gathering myself together as far as dealing with grief, as instead of being sad when I hear her song or somebody else's song. I know I've lost a lot of people, and or see their candy bar or their favorite beer or whatever, and being sad about it, I'll pick it up and go, man, I'm drinking this one for you. Remember that time? And I'll say it out loud. Remember that time we were at the bar and this happened? Or remember that time we were singing this song in the car? And laugh. Because I think that if negative energy and grief and pain can have a downward pull, then maybe the happy stuff could have an upward lift.
That makes sense.
I mean, that's just my thing. And it certainly makes me feel better. So if it makes me, it makes us feel better. I mean, I do crazy stuff like, my grandmother's birthday, I'll go get her favorite candy bar and eat it. This is for you. Instead of taking flowers to the grave, I buy them, I bring them in the house, and I talk to, a happy memory or something like when I'm putting them together. I'm like, these are for you. We'll enjoy them together. It helps me a lot. And that's just advice for try it. See if it works for you. If it lift you up a little bit, instead of crying when you. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah.
I tend to agree with you there. It's like it initially, maybe they have to know that it's okay for them to go on. They're stuck behind you with some sort of unfinished business or something like that. But then there comes a point where whatever it is has been resolved, and then they're gone. Whether somebody's helped them along or they've figured it out on their own. And then I think there's some that never get that resolution, and they're still earthbound for whatever reason. And then in my family, particularly my mom's side, the only time they've ever seen somebody that passed on, it foretold a death in the family. My grandmother had been dead for years, and my mom had a visitation of her a year to the day before she died. So I hope I don't see any of my relatives. And so far, anything that I've ever seen or experienced apparition-wise, it wasn't anybody that I knew. So,
so let's talk about the Ouija board. And you had a Ouija board experience, and it seems like people are split on this. Like, to me, they're a tool. There's nothing inherently evil about these things, but they can connect to things that maybe aren't so positive. And of course, there are people who think that they're just inherently evil. So what was your experience with it?
Well, my experience kind of goes along with what you just said. Because I think at the time, I obviously knew more undercover, because like I said, we didn't really talk about it much. You certainly didn't go into school and start talking about the orbs that threw flu. You just didn't do it back then. But I was trying to research as much as I could from multiple places. I've never been satisfied with reading a book and going, okay, this is the idea, I'm sticking with this. Every direction I could possibly reach, just like I do with herbs. I'd never trust one person. So I knew enough, and I knew enough to be cautious. But I didn't really know why, I think, till later. So I'm going to tell you why and then tell you the story, and there's a reason for that. So I believe now that in the condition I was in, mentally, obviously depressed, a teenage girl with God knows what kind of abilities, definitely not in any kind of check, I believe that something stopped me that day. I can't tell you who. I'd be a guess. But I was probably within 7 months of my mother's death, and I'm next door younger girl, a little younger than me, and we were swimming in a pool. And after we swam and stuff, you kind of get bored and you have, everything else. And her dad had this beautiful DeSoto, and he was always in the driveway polishing his car, man. So, he was always right there. And it was just cool because I love cars. I was a motorhead from way back. And we were talking about her dad's car, and I kind of wanted to go talk to her dad, So she says, well, let me go in and we'll see if I can get some games or something. We'll play a board game. And I'm like, sure, why not? She goes in the house, and she comes back with a stack, maybe 7 or 8 board games. They were so big back in the day. Mm-hmm. And she sets them down on the table, and I'm looking up the side, and you used to be able to look at the side, and there'd be a picture of the board game in the corner. It would tell you after the description of the name, And I'm looking, I'm going, okay, Life, Yahtzee, Battleship, and then Ouija, Monopoly. Wait, go back one. What I'm saying? It was just kind of like that. And I was trying to be really nonchalant about it because I didn't want to seem like excited, but I really just wanted to grab the board, go home, and like leave her behind and go, okay, let me talk to some people here. And we kind of pulled it out, and I kind of let her take the lead, and she described it to me and everything, and I'm like, okay. And I honestly think we did that kid thing where we said, let's call Martha Washington or George Washington or whoever it was. I can't remember who we were going to call, poor people that died. And I let her take the lead on that, and she started doing it really creepy, She starts calling. I said, anybody here, I'm trying to like hold my stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, it's going to be awesome. And I'm watching her, I hated being duped. And I'm actually watching the muscles in her arms and her hands. Like, if she moves this, I'm going to know I've got her,
Right.
And I'm really intent. I'm listening to her. And it just kind of, all of a sudden, kind of moved real fast. The planchette moves real quick. It jerks, kind of. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, you did that. And what's the first thing you do? You pull your hands off. Girls, you pull your hands off, you scream, And she's like, you did that. I did that. No, you did, like neither one of us was fessing. So now we put her hands back on. She says, you have to keep your fingers on. I'm like, I am. So as soon as she does it, I get to call out. She says, you do it. I said, okay. Do I have to do it the creepy voice? It's like, okay. I call out, is there any spirits among us? All of a sudden, and I really felt like a tingle. I really did feel a tingle. It zigs to the right, zags to the left, zigs a little bit further to the right, and then all of a sudden takes this big left, like, shoo, and it goes across the board, off the table, catches air, goes over the shallow end of the pool. Okay? It's still catching air. Lands on the other side. Used to be a rope that goes across with these little bobbers, little floaties. That signaled the deep end, goes across that rope, and then all of a sudden, like it was pushed by an invisible hand straight down, and I mean about halfway into the water. We're just watching it. You can see the bubbles being forced up from it, and then all of a sudden it let go, and it just shimmied to the bottom, just floated, and landed on the bottom of the pool. And we jump up, and I promise you, chairs were knocked over and everything. We go running around to the side and look down at this thing. And I'm in like this frozen panic. I don't know what to say. And I just kept remembering looking up at her dad in the driveway, who's just polishing his car, not knowing anything's going on. I'm like, do we scream for help? And I don't want to look like an idiot here.
Right.
So I just froze and said nothing. I just kept looking at him and looking at, the thing at the bottom of the pool and looking at her and looking back at him. Just doing one of these, like, what just happened? And then finally I broke the silence. And I said, man, I'll tell you one thing. I ain't going in to get that thing. That thing can stay. And that planchette sat in the bottom of that pool for the rest of the week until her dad fished it out with one of those pool cleaner things.
Right.
And I never touched another one. And it wasn't because I was afraid of the board. It wasn't because of that. It was because I knew that somebody either was protecting me or didn't want me to touch it, or was protecting her and didn't want her to touch it. Or, both of us. It was just a compelling thing. Now, most people would say, okay, that was your mom, and she was trying to protect you from the board because the board's evil. It could have been anybody. It could have been anything. It wasn't us. I mean, there was no way I could have even took my hand and flung it like that, on purpose. That was a definite don't touch this. I think it's the board. No. I think it's your intent. And I think at that point in time, I would have probably been wide open for something negative to get in, maybe.
Right.
But I think I could have had the same thing drawing on the floor with a Sharpie and using a glass, if you know what I mean. It's you're opening yourself up and inviting something in that case. That's how I feel. I don't know. Steve's got a great story about Ouija's too, but I think you kind of feel the same, don't you, Steve?
Yeah, and I agree with Seriah. It can be used for good or evil. I don't think that they're inherently evil, but like anything, it's the purpose and the intent and the mindset of the person using it. I've seen people have just horrible times with them, and then I've had very good experiences with them, going all the way back to childhood. My mom bought me my first Ouija board when I was 5 years old, and this was the late 60s, and that version of the Ouija board had the black cover with the hooded figure kind of in a purple blue there, and I was in the toy section at Woolworths. I'm like, what's this? And of course my mom knew what it was, and she sort of explained it to me, and I'm like, I gotta have it. And she bought it for me, and my first Ouija experience was with my mom. I was asking about the weather. I wanted to know if it was going to snow, and the board said, yeah, it's going to snow tomorrow. And there was only like a 30% chance, and we got a huge snow, and I was overjoyed. And another time, same time period, there was an album of Christmas music at kindergarten that I just coveted, a little childhood desire here. I had to have it. And it was probably pressed back in the 50s or something, so it was long out of print. Couldn't find it at any of the places I normally bought my little records and stuff. So I asked the Ouija board with my mom about it. Sure enough, it gave us the name of this little obscure record store down on Market Square in Knoxville, Tennessee. My mom called the record store, looked it up in the phone book. Yeah, it actually existed. Called them, long-distance call even back then. And the guy's like, oh, okay, I'll look around and call you back. And I thought, even 5 years old, I thought, well, that's it. He'll never call us back. Sure enough, in about an hour, call back, and out of the thousands of records this guy had there, he found a copy of the record that I wanted in his Stockton, a used copy. And a couple days later, we went to downtown Knoxville. I come back holding the record on my lap. Thanks, Ouija. But my mom, her family was big into the whole spiritualism thing. They came up through that era, and they often held seances. They did, they called it table tapping, but it's also known as table tipping. So they were well versed in that sort of thing, and they knew that there was just certain things you didn't ask it in. You had to have a certain almost reverence when you approached it. It wasn't something you did lightly. It wasn't something you made fun of necessarily. You could have a good time doing it, but within limits. And then later on, I've had experiences where I have a story that I recounted in my book where something invisible came out of a ditch and chased me when I was a kid.
Oh, right,
and
yeah.
I'm at a party 12 years later, something like that, and they found a Ouija board under the couch, and the girls are working it and giggling and going on, and they're going around the room asking questions. And I didn't know anybody at the party except for the person I was with, and that was just somebody I knew from work, so I'd never told any kind of my stories or anything to him. And they got to me, and I'm like, okay, I've got one for you. I'm like, what scared me when I was a kid? That was all I gave them, only info I gave them. The board spells out WATERSPRITE, water sprite. And they're like, what's that? Is it thirsty? Does it want a drink? Does it want some water? Does it want a Sprite? And I'm just like, I don't know. And next day, I knew exactly what it was saying. The next day, I went to the library, went up to the reference librarian, and said, what can you tell me about a water sprite? And this was in the days before the internet. Sure enough, it was, I can't remember if it was a dryad or a naiad, but there is an elemental type fey spirit that lives in the woods and chases kids, apparently. So, And the girl that's working the Ouija board had no idea what I was talking about, but the board knew. So there you go.
All right.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about the Grinners. This is almost a Grinning Man sort of thing.
Oh, Grinners.
You've encountered a few of these. I've never encountered anything like this.
Never?
No.
I'll tell you, it's and I have encountered, I didn't put it in the book, but I have encountered what I would consider what's his name? David
Weatherly?
The Man. Say it again.
Weatherly?
Yes. To hear his story about being in the car and looking back and passing that guy walking on the side of the road and looking back and seeing the Grinning Man, that happened to me.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
I didn't put it in the book. Yeah. I just think it's weird. What is it when we're driving, we have to look at the face of the person that's walking? You know, if they're not hitchhiking and they're just walking, you turn around and look. Like being at the beach, turn around looking to see who's reading what book, you know. And I had that happen. And, but I did, yeah, that one just scared the heck out of me. I don't know what it is about the smile, but I think that was separate. I think that was more of like an entity or a type of thing. The Grinners I spoke to about in the book is more of there's something else in these people, or there's some other knowing or sense, and it's not good. And I don't mean that they're possessed, but I don't mean that they're not. I don't know. But in every case that it's happened to me, it's almost like it's a feeling of, how do I explain? Say you're walking a room, just say you walk into a small shop. In fact, that happened to me once. I was walking with my niece, and we walk into a small shop, and it was a metaphysical shop, and they had, you know, herbs and dream catchers and trees of life and just, you know, cool stuff and candles and you name it, incense. And I walk in, and right away I felt something. And I never know really what that is because I'm just not good at deciphering. You know, once you think you got it, something else comes at you. You never really know. You kind of just have a familiarity with the feeling. And I to the point where I told my niece to get behind me because I felt very protective of her, you know. And even though she's 6'4", get behind me, hide. And we go walking in, and I'm like, something's here. And I don't know what it is. You real quick case the room, and you're looking for what's the source of this feeling. Mm-hmm. And across the shop, behind the counter, is a woman sitting at like a desk working behind the counter. And all of a sudden, as soon as I linked into her and zeroed in, she just quick turned her head. This one almost hissed at me. I'm not joking. There's kind of like a sound. I mean, if that's not creepy, I don't know what is. And she's just got this grin. And the grin is kind of like, I know that you know. You see what I mean? And you just get this like electric kind of feeling. And sometimes there's like a pull. And I can't explain that. It's very much like, you would understand, Seriah, because you've talked about Kundalini and all that. But it's almost like a pull. Like you can feel like energy being pulled from you. Like they want to suck your energy out. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, And I've got like all these rings and gemstones and things. I just put it right in front of my chi, you know. I'm like backing out. You know what I'm saying? Like, nope. You know, sorry I came in on your territory, but I'm out of here. You know, carry on. Because you don't want to mess with that for no reason. But it's that link in. And it's exactly like I explained. It's like they know that you know. You've zeroed in on them, and they've zeroed in on you. And that's why I believe a lot of these entities are like that, too. You know, it's like the minute you connect in, you notice them, they notice you. You know? And I know that sounds really weird and very...
Yeah. I had a very weird experience with something like that once. I was in Gatlinburg. I was a teenager. Gatlinburg is a little resort town in the Great Smoky Mountains area of Tennessee. And it was the summertime. It's hot. There's a little souvenir shop there right on the parkway called the Wishing Well. Well, out front they had all these rocking chairs, like 50 rocking chairs, and people would sit out there in the shade and just take it easy. So I'm walking. It's hot. I go and sit down, and I'm just sitting there, and I notice this guy out on the sidewalk getting ready to cross the street, waiting for the light to change. and he's wearing like some kind of weird getup, like almost like a robe or something. It's like looks like some kind of holy vestments, but they're brown. And he's carrying some kind of staff, which, you know, it's the mountain. You see people with hiking sticks and stuff, but this one, it looks like a paddle that you stir molasses with or something. It's real thin, and then up near the top, it's got like a blade or a paddle type thing on it, and it's got all these weird symbols carved in it. And I'm looking at this guy from behind, and I'm thinking, man, that cat is weird. He's got to be like some kind of crazy cultist or into something really wild. And about the time I'm thinking all this guy does a complete 180-degree turn. And I'm sitting over in the shade, you know, and he can't really see me all that well, but his eyes lock on mine. And then he breaks into this, it wasn't a toothy grin, but just a big, broad grin, and then just turns back around. And I was like, I got to get out of here. It's like he heard me, and I didn't say anything out loud. I'm just thinking all this. But when his eyes hit mine, it was like a shock. Like you said, electrical shock. Just a zzz, that guy can read my mind, you know?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's creepy.
They know, you know, either it's telepathic or you're locking into the energy. That's why. And this is, you're here in this, like say, plane. You're in this dimension. You're in this and here and now. And this is another human being. And it's unexpected, you know, and I think the creepiest one is when it's a kid. Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the creepiest ones I had was a little boy. I mean, it was a very omen moment.
I love that one.
Yeah, it was a very omen moment, and it was so strong. And I really, really thought it was coming from his hectic mom. It was in a shopping situation, you know, and I was behind the counter helping another girl, you know, was a customer service manager or something. And I'm focused on the issue that she's having with the register, and I'm watching this woman who's very nicely dressed, like probably like a lawyer's office kind of dress, you know, kind of thing. And just she's buying all these picture frames and big bulk items. It was just really weird. She's struggling with the cart, and she's trying to put things on the counter. And I'm like, where is this coming from? It's just so overpowering. And I'm looking at the woman over here, and I'm looking behind me. I'm like, gosh, this is creepy. And all of a sudden, this little kid that's sitting in the cart that this woman is unloading, and as soon as I said that, where is it coming from? In my head, not out loud, he just turns and looks at me, and I promise you his eyes were dark. I don't want to say they were black, but by God, they were dark. And he just looked at me and locked eyes with me and grinned. And I'm like, oh. It's like, oh. But it was so creepy coming out of a little kid. And I mean, what do you do? It's like being the bartender with the jumpers and things like that. It's like, excuse me, ma'am, but your son is Satan, you know?
Have you seen The Omen? If you lift up his hair, there are 3 6s on his head. Like...
Oh, my God. You know, what do? You just have to remove yourself from that. And he's staring at you the whole time, and you're trying not to look in his eyes, and and he's just smiling at you. And I'm telling you, that is the creepiest thing. They don't have to have fangs.
He like kicking his mom or beating her with his shoe or something.
Yeah, he was kicking her. Yeah, he was kicking her. You know, a very well-dressed young man. I mean, that's even creepier because he was in like a little tiny suit, you know, a little short suit with the little loafer shoes and socks. Probably cost more than everything I was wearing.
Totally Damon-esque.
There's a movie called Little Evil, which is sort of a comedy take on The Omen, where the woman is raising the Antichrist, and she's completely oblivious to it, but you know, she can't keep a boyfriend because they all figure it out and leave.
Wow.
And it's actually a really funny kind of comedic, like I said, a comedic take on The Omen, and that's what it makes me think of.
It's absolutely, yeah, you know, and it's like I'm sure this kid was in complete control. I would never go to sleep with this kid in the house. You know, I mean, but it was just an overpowering feeling. I mean, you didn't even, I doubt that anybody, even if you weren't an empath or sensitive of any kind, you know, to look at this kid, it would have given you a little bit of the creeps, you know, your intuition, normal intuition, you know. Right. It was just, yeah. But what do you do? I can't imagine being God bless it, a school teacher or, you know, or somebody in daycare or something. A kid like that comes in and you just, and then right away, who's going to believe you? It's a kid. How dare you?
Right.
Big child is, you know.
Well, do you think it's saying everyone notices, though?
I don't know. I don't know. Nobody around me seemed to notice, and it was overpowering. I was all by myself in some kind of like a time tunnel or something. You know, it's like I'm actually hearing like I get this weird. It's a weird, almost like a sound, like a, you know, we're like going to get really overpowered with a lot of energy. I mean, sometimes I go in the mall, I have to leave. I can't stay because there's just so much energy. And it's just this, I don't know if it's actually a sound or it's on my own blood pressure, you know, in my head.
Right,
I don't know what it is, but that was just so overpowered. I just had to leave. I mean, I'll back out of it. You know, there's no battle here. There's no big battle.
Can't go to like a nursing home, or God forbid, I went to the children's hospital one time to visit a friend's sick kid, and I had to leave. There was some kind of dark energy just hanging around outside that place, and it was feeding on all that pain and suffering from the children. You know, and I couldn't take it. I had to exit stage left on that one.
I've seen that, the dark mass that's hovering over these people when they're sleeping and stuff.
Yep.
I don't know how like orderlies and nurses and things do it. I mean, I had to spend a lot of time in the hospital lately, you know, with my son. I mean, we spent 40 days in the hospital. I never left. And just to walk those halls, I mean, you to the point where it's apparent, you're seeing it, you know, and it's like a black glob. I can't really explain it, but it's floating kind of. And it's just, I think it's sucking the last, you know, or the pain, maybe the suffering. It's feeding on the fear and the suffering and the pain and all that stuff.
Yeah, all the above.
Yeah, horrible. These things happen.
So
you know,
let's talk about your Grinning Man encounter. To talk a little more about that. That's not in the book.
It's not in the book, and it was very, very fast, and it was just on Alabama roads out in the country, very rural, you know, and you don't expect to see, you know, if there's no a store close by, like a little gas station store, or a pack and go, whatever you want to call it, you don't expect to see people walking in the middle of nowhere along the side of a cornfield. It's already creepy. And I would be coming home as a bartender real late at night. In fact, most of the time I would talk to my son all the way home on the phone, you know, a little flip phone, because I would see the weirdest stuff. That's where I saw the little Bigfoot.
The little Bigfoot?
A little Bigfoot. Well, I can't say he was a little Bigfoot because I never saw his feet. But it was. I know that sounds weird. And that's where I saw the weird duck platypus thing cross the road, and it looked at me, which is, I wish they'd quit looking at me.
All right, we need to hear both of those stories too. So go on.
But it's the same stinking road, right? And I'm going down the road, and you're always extremely cautious. I can't say that enough. It's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, but people run stop signs, and if you don't know what the stuff is, you can't see because you have corn on both sides of you, you know, and down this dark stinking road. And all of a sudden, I come up, I make my turn, and I come up around the curve, and there's a guy walking, and it looks like, okay, he's got like a brown, looks like a real worn old suede jacket that came down, you know, kind of below his waist, and I'm jeans, obviously. I have no idea what kind of shoes, probably boots. I have no idea. And I'm trying to see if I know the guy, because right away, you know, when you're out in the country like that, everybody helps everybody. You think that I pass a broke down car, you know, somebody out of gas, something like that. Right away, you're thinking those things. And you usually know the people that are around because the houses are, at that time, they were like half a mile apart. You know, they're all farms. And I don't recognize this guy. So I kind of speed up faster. I'm not stopping, you know. And as I go by, you're looking in your rearview mirror and stuff, or out the side, passenger side, to see if you recognize the face. And as I look back, it's just, that's when he looked toward me, and it's just this great big, not quite Joker, but very much like Joker. Like, it wasn't a real mouth. In fact, I kind of like shook my eyes like, I'm not seeing what I'm seeing. It wasn't red or clown face or anything. It was just extremely unsettling. You know, I mean, it wasn't normal. And a normal face, and he just looked at me. His eyes weren't weird that I could see, but I'm going by very fast. So you're just like, what? And you're looking in the rearview mirror and in the side mirror as he gets further and further away. And he had just stopped and was like watching me go. He stopped walking. And I'm just really glad he wasn't like running towards me at that point in time. I just kept going.
Right.
Never saw him again. Never heard anybody ever tell me. And I never told anybody, you know. I remember going home and telling my sons I just saw some weird guy walking, you know. If there's a knock on the door, do not answer it. You know, one of those weird things. Because it wasn't far from my house. But scary. Very scary.
Now, what about the little Bigfoot?
Okay. That one we were on the same road, same situation, corn was high. And when the corn's high, like I said, you're in a car and it's just like another world, you know. And my son was in the car, my youngest, and he was probably 10, 11. And you're always on the lookout for something darting out from the corn. It's either going to be a deer, it's going to be, you know, we used to have a lot of cows, and like a couple of farms out there had these little miniature horses, and they were always getting out because the fences were usually built for the big horses, and they didn't realize these little scallywags, man, they could get out, you know. So you're always watching for stuff like that darting out of the corn, and you know, kids getting stoned in the corn. They're always running and carrying on and stumbling onto the road. So you're always kind of watching out both sides of your periphery, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're going, I see this kind of darker shape that's kind of standing on the edge of the corn, almost onto the road. And I can't really tell what it is. It almost kind of looks like a person or a kid, like I said, maybe, you know, because kids used to go out and get stoned in the middle of the corn all the time. You know, nobody can see it. And I'm driving a little slower because I don't know if it's going to jump out in front of the car or run. And as we go by, it's gray-brown, short-ish. I'm going to say it was no taller than me, and I'm like 5'4", as the way, you know, because I could see his whole face and head and shoulders as through the passenger side window. So that's about how tall he was. And it had almost like a leathery type dark face, and just every way you've had, you know, Bigfoot described, like the Sasquatch face. But it had an extremely large bottom lip, like it was pouting. And I was torn between, is this thing going to, you know, dart at the car? My son is between me and it, you know, so your mom protective mode kicks in. And I just wanted to, also, I'm going through this cloud of extreme sadness and depression when I passed it. It was extremely, whatever it was very scared, frightened, lost, sad, hurting, something, because I just kind of went through it like a cloud. And it was just so overpowering, the whole experience, that I just kind of locked onto that face and saw that lip more than anything. And its eyes, he looked right at us. And like I said, he just looked so sad. But it scared me so much I didn't want to stop. Like, do you need help? You know,
yeah.
Who would do that? Who would do that? And you don't think about, let me take a picture of you. You know, I just wanted to get him away from my son, because my son was just glass away from it. I didn't see its hands or its feet. Like I said, mostly shoulders, covered in hair, dark colored, very gray, dark gray kind of underneath. But his face was very leathery, you know. But that lip, it was very pink underneath, kind of pinky gray. It was lighter color underneath, and just very wet and kind of hung down. It's so weird. And I've heard since that in that area in Tennessee, Alabama, I was right on the Tennessee-Alabama border, that there's another creature, I forget the name of it. One of the Bigfoot guys I talked to said that there was another, but I forget the name. And I said, well, you know, maybe it was him. But I just call him Little Bigfoot because he looked like a little Bigfoot, like a baby or something. It was definitely not.
What?
It wasn't a big one, you know, or,
right,
you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what's the platypus-like creature?
I used to see the weirdest combinations of things. And it was on this road. And usually these darn things would come out to the middle of the road and sit. And I saw 3 of them, and none of them made any sense. It would be like something the size of a medium-sized dog, but it had like a rabbit's body, and this one thing, it looked like it had, I want to say platypus's face. You know how like what's that thing it's not a platypus. What is it? They're in Florida and they walk around the beach all the time with the big bills, and they put the fish in the bill. It kind of looked like a little old man. Yeah, kind of looked as a bird. It kind of looks like a little old man, but it's got that big
pelicans.
There you go. It had kind of like a pelican thing, but it was more of a duck shape. And I'm like, it's not making any sense to me. And I'm on the phone with my son telling me, I said, something weird is in front of the car. And I don't know whether to go around it or sit here and wait because it's just weird. And he said, describe it. That's why I can describe it. You know, I said, it's got like a rabbit's back feet. It looks kind of more like a duck's body, you know, like a feathers. But the feet look like fur, and the head looks like this, and he's sitting down, and because I had stopped the car. There's no other cars on the road. This is the middle of the night in the middle of nowhere. And the headlights were on it. And as I did that, it turned and looked at me. And that did it, man. I just floored it. I'm like, I'm out of there. And I just went around it, you know. And it was too small to see out the side, so I couldn't get a good look at its head. I just didn't want it to jump on the car or something. But I saw weird stuff like that out there all the time. Things that didn't quite make sense, you know. Like you think it's a cow, but it turns around and it really looks more like a big goat. And I'm like, ugh. And I don't know whether there was maybe I was near one of those experimental science farms or something.
Well, is there something unusual about the area that might create weird energy?
Since talking to you about the pig boar thing in the Dismal Swamp, which that was Virginia, totally different state, I'm thinking maybe it was one of maybe something like that, like it's an energy that my mind couldn't process, so it was just trying to put it together. You know, I don't know. But there's a lot of bad energy, I could tell you, in that area right there. A lot of bad things, not only to Native Americans going way back, but you know, that time currently was just farms and things like that. But it wasn't a good area for human beings being evil to other human beings. It was right. The next town over was like the birthplace of the KKK. Mm-hmm. The next town over was called Killam. Mm. And the town from that was Skinnem.
Oh.
And I didn't cross the border much, you know. So who knows what went on there? Maybe there was a lot of gathering of energy. There could have been. I mean, I've been in other towns. I know what you're talking about. There was another town out there, not in that area, kind of almost completely on the other side. But that I could not stay in that house. And it wasn't so much the house. It was the area, and there was so many caves and stuff out there where they found bones and animal sacrifices, and there was a church on every corner, but I've never felt such evil in a town in my life. I don't know how to explain it, you know. And I had to get out of there. I lasted like 3 months there before I just picked up and left one day and told my husband, "You can either come, you know, or you can stay here, but we're out of here." It was just overwhelming, and that's where he had black floating figures all through the house, and a guy hung himself in the garage, and just all kind of horrible stuff going on in that house. Yeah.
Now you also mentioned the jumpers, so tell people about the jumpers.
The jumpers, probably one of my favorites. I was a bartender, and I call them jumpers. I don't know what other people call them. I've been calling them that for years. As a bartender in this bar, I got to observe a lot of people, and I'm a people watcher, you know. It's like, what's going on, you know? Well, this was a unique situation because it was a hotel. It was a massive franchise hotel, really luxury. And they had the bar, and it was kind of cool, and I was the manager and usually the full-time bartender. And it was across from the Army base that I had just retired out of. So I kind of got along with the clientele a lot. There was a lot of TDY guys that came in there, which is temporary duty, and they might stay for weeks. They might stay for a couple months. So they come into the bar, and you get to know them. So that's why it was a unique situation for me to try to understand what was happening, because people usually come in and they have a routine. You know, they're peanut eaters. You got to keep the bowl of peanuts full. You know, they're going to drink the same beer. They're going to play the same type of songs on the jukebox. They're going to play pool or they're not. They're going to order food or they're not. You know, it's one of those. Mm-hmm. And they used to come in early, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon or something before like the busy time. So you get to talk to some of these people. And this one particular guy, he came in, and I'll tell you this part because it's important, I think. He was very homesick at this point. He had been there for about 3 weeks now, and I didn't see him every day, but I saw him often, at least 3 times a week. Great dad, always bragging on his kids, showing me pictures, talking about how wonderful his wife was, how much, you know, they're probably eating dinner about now, and I can't wait to get home. And this particular day, he's telling me about a swing set that he put together for them before he left, and he had just gotten pictures. And this was before you had so many pictures on your phone. We said like flip phones. And They had sent him a picture, and he showed it to me, and he was like, man, I hope I got that bolt just right and all this other stuff. It was just that attentive. And he came in, and he was extremely hungry. He had skipped lunch, and he knew the routine where I gave him a bunch of takeout menus because our kitchen was under renovation. And he always had the same beer. So I gave him a mug of beer, and he was eating like peanuts and stuff. And I said, well, order now, and that way you could beat the rush, and we'll get you some food because you need to eat, man. You know, we're chit-chatting. And I'm turned my back to him after he had his beer and everything, and I'm listening to a story, and I'm putting the tops on the bottles and setting the bar up, and I'm looking in the mirror to talk to him, you know, the mirror behind the bar. And I noticed this like kind of gray, greasy spot on the mirror. And I'm thinking, man, I got to clean that mirror. That's terrible. That, you know, that's not been there. And just made a mental note. And I'm continuing on talking to him. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I look in the mirror, and his head, you know, kind of goes down. I see this just change in him. His head goes kind of down. He slaps both of his hands on the bar. And I'm thinking, oh my God, is he having some kind of a seizure? Is he falling out of the chair? What's going on? And I turn around and I look at him, and he just kind of picks up his head, and he looks at me, and he says, shot of tequila, no salt. I'm like, what? Totally different. Totally different. Even his facial expressions looked different. His voice sounded different. And I'm just taken aback by the whole thing. And I said, you have a preference on that? You know, and he just says, gold. Okay. And I go get the Cuervo, and I pour him a shot, and I'm like, this is weird. He's never done this before. You know, okay, shake it off. You're imagining stuff. You know, of course it's, you know. So I just hand it to him, and he shoots it right down. He stands up, and he starts rolling up his sleeves, and he starts ruffling around in his pockets. I'm like, what is going on here? I mean, it's just it's just different. And he puts some money up on the bar, and he says, change, pool table. Talking real short, you know. And I swear to you, like in a different voice, change, pool table. This guy never talked to me like this. It's like, hey, Sysco, man, how you doing? I mean, he's real loose and goosey, you know. And I said, okay. And I rifle around in my tip jar, and I give him the change, and he goes over and he puts some, you know, starts putting music on the jukebox, and I'm like, I gotta set up. I don't know what's going on here. So I'm running around doing my normal setup, and another couple comes in, and I, you know, make her margarita and whatever. And I'm watching him. He's over at the pool table, and by God, you know, he's doing his pool table, playing all by himself, and he's making these shots like a pro. You know, and I'm watching him. He's dancing around to the song and stuff. And I'm like, okay, he's having a good time. Wow, what a change, you know. I go in the back, and I get some beer and come back out, and he gets another shot. Same thing. Shot of tequila, no salt. Shoots it down again. All right, I got to keep my eye on him. He's empty stomach. Here we go. You know, we're getting cut off here soon. I start loading the beer, and he's playing a pool. He comes back, and all of a sudden I look, and he's back down on he's got his head on the bar. I'm like, okay, here we go. You know, we got to cut him off, got to get him to his room. I'm thinking this kind of stuff. I go over to him and I said, hey, man, you okay? And he says, oh, Sysco, man, oh, God, my head hurts. You know, I don't know where this headache came from just out of nowhere. Because I guess, I don't know. I can't wait to order food. I got to go lay down. And now he's back. He's talking to me like he normally did, you know. And the poor guy's got a bad headache. And I'm thinking, okay. He says, just give me my tab. Let me pay my tab. And I'm like, all right. So I go to the register. And I go to pick up my tab, where I write down the tabs. And I'm looking, 2 shots of tequila and a beer, you know. Mm-hmm. And as I look up in the mirror to make sure he's not falling on the floor, I see this little gray puffet, like a mist, circle right behind him, shoot behind him, circle around the top of the pool table, and poof, dart through the doors of the kitchen. Kitchen doors never move. They're the kind of flappy doors. He just goes right through the doors. And I look in the mirror and I look back at him and the spot's gone. And I'm like, oh, okay, here, okay, 1 and 2, okay, that's 4. And I look at him and I look back down at the tab and I scratched 2 shots of tequila off the tab and I said, okay, soldier, this beer's on me. Go to your room. I'm going to order you some food and I'll have the manager bring it up to you. And I never charged him for the tequila because I don't think he was the one drinking it. That's a jumper.
But you have a follow-up to that.
Yes, I do. Being the fact that the bar was set up like it was, like I said in the beginning, you got to spend a little time with some people sometimes. Sometimes you're so busy you didn't know your own name. So how many times this happened, I couldn't tell you. But there was 2 I noticed. One night, it was a Friday, and I was cleaning off tables. We had 2 bartenders that night, and I had been serving this one table of office workers, and there was like some that were just ready to go, you know, and they all come in all dressed up in their 3-piece suits, you know, and 2 drinks in, jackets gone, ties are gone, you know, they're dancing like crazy, you know, that kind of thing. It was always fun to watch people loosen up, you know, and there was this one little guy that came with the group, and he wasn't even drinking. He was drinking some kind of cranberry mix spritzer. You know, I mean, it didn't have any alcohol in it whatsoever, but I thought it was cute. He ordered it like it was a drink, you know. And he was just kind of real timid. And about the 3rd time I went back up to the table, he just looks at me. And I said, y'all ready for another round? And he just looks at me and, you know, everybody else is up dancing. I'm cleaning the table and he goes, shot of tequila, no salt, and I about dropped the tray. And I look at him. And his jacket's off. He's starting to roll it up his sleeves. I'm like, oh, my God, here we go again. And I go get it for him. What am I going to do? Say, I'm sorry, sir, I can't serve you. You're being haunted by a ghost. What do you do? You just go get it. And I gave it to him, and he drank it. And, of course, he asked for change for the pool table. I'm like, oh, my gosh. And it doesn't take you long to start putting 2 and 2 together here, you know. And I'm looking around, you know, I'm like, oh, wow, what's going to happen? But we're extremely busy. And I can't go up to the other bartender and go, hey, look, man, this guy's, you know, he's got jumped by a ghost. This is going to be great. He's going to shoot pool. He's going to go over there and play the jukebox. He's going to play this song. You don't say anything. You just watch. And I got real busy, and I go back to the table, and now there's a couple people sitting there, and his head's down on the table. He had 2 shots. I served him 2 shots of tequila. It seemed to be the limit, right? And I asked the guy, I said, you know, the guy's tie is in the cranberry juice drink. I remember that because I'm taking the tie and like squishing it out, you know, and handing it to the other guy. And I said, he's not driving, is he? And he says, no. I see. He says, he doesn't even drink. And I said, well, honey, he did tonight. And I said, here's your tab, because he was done. You know, they were all done. And he said, tequila? He doesn't drink tequila. And I said, honey, he did tonight. And he didn't believe it. And then the last one before I left, it was another night where I was leaving and the other bartender was staying, and I'm counting out tips. And some ladies came in. I don't know what kind of little group it was, but they were so cute. They were older and very well dressed and very prim and, you know, very nice suit skirt suits and stuff. And they were older, and she was just as cute as pie, just cute little white hair all in curls and very together, And I hadn't served them. But when I was counting out the tips, she comes up, I guess, to get another round on the table and was talking to the other bartender. And she slaps her hands down on the table, and she looks at my friend, and she says, "Shot of tequila, no salt." And I about dropped the tip jar. Like, you got to be kidding me. And that when they said it, it was like their voice was extremely gruff, like, "Shot of tequila, no salt," very demanding.
Right.
And she was kind of taken aback. And I'm just like, count the tips out real quick. And I had to grab my purse. And I so wanted to turn around and go, she's going to want change for the pool table, too, and throw quarters on the bar. But I didn't do it. Because that just tells you, what do you do in that case?
Yeah.
Watch for the gray mist. It's going to go through the kitchen. And, people are going to think you're Looney Tunes. But that's, later on I found out a little bit more about jumpers. But a lot of times they want to do exactly what they're doing. And I can't explain it, how that entity or that human has the ability to stay back and jump into people so they can drink alcohol, play a little pool, and then go back to the kitchen. I can't explain that. You ever seen them, Steve?
I have. I've experienced stuff like that. And person I was explaining it to was talking about a guy we know that used to ride motorcycles, and my friend said, I believe some of the spirits that rode with Billy the Kid and some of those outlaws are the same ones that ride with these guys. They've just traded in the horses for motorcycles. He's like, they're great guys, but you get them around alcohol or in a certain circumstance, it's like a whole other person comes out of them. And it was true, and I don't think it was just the alcohol. There was a little something else there at work, I think.
What's your take on that, Seriah?
I don't know. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward that there's something there that hasn't moved on and maybe, influencing these people at a moment of weakness.
And doesn't that make you think next level? Now, if a human spirit who's decided to stay, whether knowingly or not, it's just going about its business and it's learned to jump into people. I have a little theory that some people, I don't think it's just the alcohol that will let down, whatever you want to call it, your protective bubble or your aura, I call it cracks in your windshield. I think feelings can do that too. I think this guy was really depressed. He was homesick,
emotions,
tired.
All that can cause a change like that, I think. And
I think so. But
strange.
How many people are sitting in jail because they did something they can't remember?
In my college days, I drank a lot, but I never, ever drank to the point that I didn't remember what I did. But I hear people say that all the time. I drank and I don't remember what I did. I woke up the next day, I'm in somebody's house. This is a true story. This guy knew he woke up in somebody's house and there's kids he doesn't recognize sitting on the floor playing Nintendo. And they're like, "You want to play Nintendo?" And he's like, "No, I'm good." And so he sees a picture on the wall, like the mom and dad and the kids. And he's like, "That's your mom and dad?" And they're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Where are they?" Like, "Oh, they're asleep." And he's like, "I didn't recognize either person in the picture. I'd never been in this house before." He's like, "I got up and got out of there just in case I'd wandered into somebody's house." But I've never drank so much that I didn't know what I was doing. And I've drank a lot in the past.
Me too.
It makes you wonder.
Yeah, not all blackouts are caused by alcohol.
Blackout drugs, if that's something else entirely.
Yeah, it just makes you wonder, how many people might have gotten, if a human ghost can do that, imagine what, entities and other things can do, I mean, Sure. It just opens up a whole lot of questions. But I saw that with my own eyes, and I've worked at bars, not that one, but other ones where I've actually seen something invisible go down the whole line of the bar and like smack this one, and this one will turn this way and push that one, and the next one, it's like it goes down the whole bar just messing with people, and I can feel it, can't see it. I don't know what it is, and I think there are some, that decide to stay just to get that taste of alcohol or start a fight.
It's just like to stir things up. Back when I rode a Harley, I've been in places where everybody was cool and everybody was having a good time, and then all of a sudden somebody went ahead of somebody else. You know how they line their quarters up on the pool table to know who's next? Somebody went ahead of somebody, or somebody spilled somebody's beer, and instead of, oh, I'm sorry, it's your turn, or, oh, here, let me buy you another beer, it was just like in the Old West, a fight would erupt, and people are like throwing each other and breaking pool sticks over each other. It's like the whole bar just all of a sudden goes nuts. And I've been in those situations. Like, let me out of here.
Yeah. It's very weird. I mean, I actually, with help through a psychic medium, because like I said, I can't hear them if they're crying. That just seems the way my stuff goes. But I'm devoted in helping, because I just consider it goes for people too. If I am talking to a human being and all the right clicks are going off in me, my tells, my feelings my filters, And this one guy, it turned out that he had died when he was 21. He was hit by a train that ran behind this bar, and he used to go in this bar all the time. And they'd been having problems and, stuff, and called in people. And it was a friend of mine said, hey, can you come and help us decipher? Because he's not talking to us. We're not getting anything. It's very erratic. I'm like, sure. And that's usually what happens with me. I never seek it. It always finds me. So I'm like, sure, let's go. And it turned out, and he was listening to me. He would listen to me. And it turned out, like I said, it took a long time to get it all out, but he was about 21. He got hit by this train. He was angry. He broke up with his girlfriend. There was a lot of that going on. But he didn't want to go anywhere else. There was people, his belief system had told him there was people on the other side that he just didn't want to deal with. Family fights and stuff like that. And he decided he liked it here. He knew what this was. And he liked to do that. He said he didn't do it much, but he liked to, sit with people and experience alcohol. He liked the music. He liked the atmosphere. And he didn't want to go. And I said, absolutely free will, man. You absolutely have your free will choice. But please understand, time is different, to us and to you, from what I understand. So what are you going to do when this place turns into a parking lot? Are you going to be able to go?
Right.
So consider that. Consider that, before I walk away here, please consider that. My friends will be back, I won't trust them. And if you want to talk, that's great, And they had to go back several times, and they finally got him to decide to go, because they told him, that they felt and believed that if you did, he could always come back again, but he would have a little more knowledge, a little more working with that. And that's what they believed, so. But that's the sad part, how long do they stick around? I've got medium friends that just came back from England that swears he had Anne Boleyn run through him down the hall. Yeah. This poor girl's been chasing after her head for how many years?
I've read about places in England where they've seen ghosts of Roman soldiers marching through the basement. Yeah, that's a long time to be a ghost on the march, but I think that's more like a residual where it just plays over and over, like there's something recorded in that rock there. Like I always use the example of, when you record on tape, it's just ferrous oxide on there that's been activated to record those sounds, and I think somehow under the right conditions, that same thing can happen with certain types of quartz rock and things where it acts as some sort of recording agent and then somehow plays it back, and that's not really a spirit we're seeing. It's just like a primitive videotape, if you will.
Right.
Yeah, I had a guess on my
the stone
tape
theory.
Yeah,
stone tape theory.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not hearing Seriah. Say it again.
Oh, I said it's the stone tape theory.
Yeah. I had a guest on my show. He lives out west by Superstition Mountain, and they went out there and actually got EVPs that were answering questions they were asking in a different language. And when they went and studied it, and and it took a lot to do it, found out it was an ancient language.
Wow.
It went back, and I mean, like,
that is one of the creepiest places on earth. I've been in the Superstition Mountains. Yeah. They've had a lot of disappearances out there. They've found people missing their head. There's certain bands or tribes of Indians or Native Americans that won't go into certain areas, some that'll avoid the whole mountain range. There's supposedly like rocks and caves and things that can't be photographed, and
Really?
little clouds that'll pop up out of nowhere and seem to follow people. I've heard of people inching their way along a cliff face, and suddenly these huge gusts of wind come out of nowhere. It's an odd place. I don't know. There's a different energy at work in the superstitions.
And why do you think that is?
It's one of those things. I don't know if it's something that's been there, or if it's something that was summoned there, or just passing through that decided to stay. Because according to which Native American stories you listen to, it's always been there. It's always been evil. And others are like, no, it was this, and then the evil came in. And but a lot of times when places have that, and I call it the name game, you have all these places with weird names or devil's names or something, and it makes you wonder, is it so named because of something that happened there, or because it was named that, did that cause the things to happen? Is it some sort of reciprocal thing going on there? But I've looked into that a lot. But a lot of times if you've got, Devil's Canyon or Satan's Staircase or whatever, and there's a lot of places with these weird names, there will be a history of odd things happening there, but I don't know if it's one influencing the other or how that works.
Yeah.
I think it's funny that I'm surrounded by a lot of they pushed all the people out, but they named all the motels and stores and roads after them and little towns and stuff after my people, right? And I think it's so funny because, you get these names of towns and then you find out the translation of it. It's like, oh, look, we've got, such and such. Isn't that a beautiful name? And I'm like, yeah, it means, white man's going to die.
Over in Washington, similar. There's a little town over near the Bronson Pinchot, or not Bronson Pinchot, near the Gifford Pinchot National Forest. First time I ever went into the town, like when I crossed into it, I just felt weird, and I thought there is something off here. There's something not right. And I couldn't even get phone service there, but I Googled it when I got home. The name of the little town was Yakult, Yacolt, and it's actually an Indian or Native American word, I can't remember the tribe, that means Valley of the Fire Demon. And in this place, there's a thing called the Yakult Burn, where they had this mysterious fire that it was one of the biggest brush fires in the West, burned all this territory. They still have fires that just inexplicably break out in some of the businesses. There's tales of tiny Native American braves, about 2 or 3 feet tall, chasing people. All the children disappeared from this town at one time. Back in, I think it's the 1800s or something, there was a bunch of children that went missing that were never accounted for. And it's just all this weird stuff. And it's like, you don't go to a place called Valley of the Fire Demon, because you're asking for trouble.
But it sounds so pretty when you say it Native American,
Yeah, cult. Yeah, that's just, although I was thinking cult, C-U-L-T, but it's C-O-L-T. It's just the way it's pronounced. But I had a weird experience there. Stopped at a little place. It was, I think, the Whistle Stop Cafe or something like that, right across from the old railroad depot. And they have a spook light that they see there. And I had gone to the restroom, and as I started out, I reached over and flipped off the lights as I took a hold of the doorknob. And then I turned the doorknob, and it wouldn't open, and it wasn't locked or anything. And I hear, like, kids giggling. And I finally try again, and I get out, and I'm like, what was that all about? And I mentioned it to the proprietor, and she's like, yeah, we have ghost children here. She's like, I hear them upstairs all the time. And I'm just like, what in the world? So I'm doing some research into that one. I'm thinking there's some good stories there.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Gotta dig for the good stories, man.
Oh, yeah.
It's a wonderful subject, isn't it? It just keeps giving.
And I love it when you find one, like, I've never even heard of it, but I knew when I came into town, I just had this weird feeling, there's something not right here. And then I find out all that, and I'm like, this is great. You got everything here, and just not far from there in the Pinchot Forest there, the Bigfoot, and it's not that far from Mount St. Helens, and just all kinds of creepy stuff up there. Love it.
Huh.
Wonderful.
Oh, there's your next book.
Yep.
Part of one anyway.
So the name of this book is what?
It is We Are All Children in the Wilderness of the Afterlife, a guided tour through a haunted life.
And it's available everywhere?
It is on Amazon. It's on Kindle version right now. Steve and I are working on getting it in paperback, hopefully by this Halloween. So we'll send you a copy of that since
Nice.
you're in it. And again, maybe by then, maybe by the time I write the second book, I have a whole bunch of stories I could put in for another book, but this one was done that way for a reason. Mm-hmm. And the podcast is called Journey Through the Gate, Paranormal Portal Podcast, and that's found on any podcatcher, Cashbox, Podbean, you name it, or just the podcast name, Libsyn.com, on my Facebook page, The Gatekeepers. I invite everybody to come there. Steve's there, and ask any questions you want. We try to help with a lot of great people there. And Steve's got a fantastic 13 Past Midnight. Tell them about that, Steve, your YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's my YouTube channel. I decided to narrate some of the stories from my books. I've got them on there. So if you've got a favorite story from Strange Things in the Woods, More Strange Things in the Woods, or My Strange World, there's probably a narration of it. And I've even narrated some stories that are in a book that hasn't been published yet. So the next book I'm working on is Mysteries of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. That's not the official title, but I've already got some stories from that on there. So come by, give it a listen. I'm active on Facebook, Twitter at Strange and Odd is my Twitter name. Come by and say hi.
And when do you think that book will be out?
I hope to have it out later this summer. Want to have it out in time for the fall foliage season there in the Smokies. A lot of people like to go look at the leaves and things, and this way you can add a little creepy component to your vacation. I've got a lot of haunted places and odd places in the Smokies there. I've got another book I'm working on that's Ghosts Along the Appalachian Trail that takes the whole trail from Georgia to Maine and lists out real haunted places you can visit if you're hiking the AT. And I'm also working on a book of pure ghost stories, which will be a first for me. And I've got a film project that I'm working on that I can't say a lot about yet. So I've got a lot of things going on. Very exciting. Lots of stuff going.
That's fantastic.
That's us. We all ought to just hang out together and see what happens. I can't imagine three of us in one place. I don't know if we can handle that energy. Yeah.
All right. Well, I thank both of you for coming on for this part 2 of this. The book
Always
is excellent.
A pleasure.
It's a fun read. You have some great stories in there.
Thank you so much, Seriah. It means the world to me. I got goosebumps when you said that. I was really hoping that you liked it. You were really very much involved in this whole thing, and like
if it hadn't been for you introducing us, we would have probably never ran into each other. So.
Mm-hmm. So that's so cool. Reach out.
If you like it, thanks, Seriah. If you hate it, blame Seriah. So,
there you go. Thanks so much, honey. We love you, and just love your show. And
always a pleasure. We want to have you. Sysco has the podcast. I co-host and produce sometimes. We'd like to have you on as a guest with us sometime and talk to you about your experiences and all the people you've talked to.
And the first story you're going to tell us about is the time you actually told the black mass to go ahead and come inside you. It was all cool.
Yes.
That one's a good one. I love you, man, and all the listeners out there. Thanks for listening. And if you read it and you like it, let us know.
And I want to thank everyone who has become a Patreon and helped support this show. It means the world to me. And I particularly want to give a shout out to those pledging $10 or more. UFO Weekly News, Maria, John Rutledge Foster III, Kevin, Roger Gonzalez, William Lovelace, 36 Dingo, Jennifer Campbell, Nate Seriah, Mark Brady, Paul Buscini, Sasha Lorg, Christopher Vaughn, Lindsay Jackson K, Chris Isa Hot Dog S. Sandwich, Jose A., Janet Runyon, Sean Cosgrove, Ben Crow, American Rambler, Andy McNamara, Patricia Giaquinta, Eric Citron, Matthias Sunby, John Eddy, Riker and Stark, and Mike McGuire. Thank you all very, very much. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. There's a Patreon extra segment with another story from Sysco. And if you're not a patron, you can become a patron by going to wheredidtheroadgo.com and click on the link for Patreon. And it's only $3 a month to get extra content numerous times a month, and the occasional AMA shows and other neat stuff like that. Plus, you'll really be helping us out, and I really appreciate it. So thank you to everyone who was already a patron. That's coming up, and I already have some other stuff recorded and set for Patreon release over the next couple of weeks. And we'll see you next time. You have been listening to Where Did the Road Go? This show is made possible in part from our Patreons, and we thank you and everyone listening for helping us continue this exploration of the strange. You can always find everything Where Did the Road Go related at www.wheredidtheroadgo.com. And thank you so much for your support.